So what really makes a great lesson, stick? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a lesson plan from an actual 5th grade class. We're going to figure out how the best teachers build those aha moments that actually last.
I mean, think about it for a second. We've all been there, right? You're in a class, and some ideas just click. They make perfect sense. But others? They seem to vanish into thin air the moment you walk out the door. So what's the secret? How do you make learning permanent?
Well, it might feel like some kind of magic when it happens, but the truth is, the best teachers and trainers, they're not wizards, they're architects. They're using a surprisingly simple but powerful framework to guide our brains from, I have no idea, to, oh, I totally get this.
And that framework is called the ESA model: engage, study, activate. It's kind of like a 3-act play for learning. First, you get the audience hooked. That's engage. Then you give them the core information, the plot. That's study. And finally, they have to use it to put it all into practice. Activate.
Okay, so let's break it down. Stage 1 is all about engaging. Look, before you can teach anyone anything, you have to win the battle for their attention. The goal here isn't to just start talking at them, it's to spark some real curiosity and make them feel connected to the topic.
So, how does our 5th grade lesson pull this off? Not with a boring lecture, that's for sure. It starts with this: a find someone who activity. The kids literally get up, they walk around the room, and they ask each other about their favorite kinds of weather. Now, it looks like a simple icebreaker, but trust me, it is a brilliant strategic move.
So why does this little game work so well? Well, it's what educators call a communicative activity. It gets the students talking and digging up what they already know about weather. There are no right or wrong answers, so all that pressure to be perfect, it's gone. And maybe most important of all, it makes the topic personal. Suddenly, they're not just learning abstract words, they're talking about their own lives. All right, once the students are engaged, they're leaning in, they're invested. Now it's time for stage 2, study. This is where we build the foundation. This is where the new information gets delivered, but in a really clear, really structured way.
So what are our 5th graders learning about today? It's these 7 new vocabulary words, all about weather and things you can do. The teacher says the words, shows some pictures, and the students repeat them. Yep, this is that direct, nuts and bolts part of the lesson.
But, just hearing and repeating words, that's not enough to make them stick. So, the very next step is a fill-in-the-blank worksheet. And this is so key because it forces the students to immediately try and use these new words in a real, meaningful sentence.
Just take a look at this sentence. To figure this out, a student can't just have memorized the word windy. They have to actually understand what it means and how that idea connects to, say, riding a bike to school. This is that crucial moment where simple vocabulary starts turning into real, actual comprehension.
And that brings us to the grand finale, and honestly, the most crucial stage of all: activate. This is where learning stops being a spectator sport and truly comes to life. The whole point here is for students to take everything they've just studied and use it freely, creatively, and on their own terms. So how in the world does our lesson plan get students to activate all this new knowledge? With a debate. It's brilliant. The class gets split into 2 teams, Team Sunny versus Team Rainy, and their only job is to argue why their type of weather is the absolute best. Now, they're not just filling in blanks on a worksheet, they're using these new words to form an opinion, to persuade their friends. And this is the real magic of the Activate stage. The focus completely shifts. It's no longer about getting every single word grammatically perfect. It's about actually communicating an idea. It's the difference between knowing the rules of baseball and actually getting up to bat and playing the game. This right here, this is where learning really truly sticks.
So engage, study, activate. It's a simple and pretty powerful formula, right? But the real secret, the art behind the whole thing, is that every single one of these activities is deliberately tied to a clear, measurable goal. Great lessons aren't just a collection of fun activities, they are engineered for success from the ground up.
Professionals do this using something called SMART objectives. It's just a fancy way of making sure your goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So you don't just hope that students learn about weather. No, you define exactly what they need to be able to do by the end of the lesson. And you can see that straight line right here from the objective to the activity. The goal to identify 7 words, that's covered by the listen and repeat exercise in the study phase. The goal to spell 7 words correctly, handled perfectly by the fill-in-the-blank worksheet, and use words to express an opinion,
Well, what better way than the debate? Every single piece has a purpose. Nothing is random.
So there you have it, the Engage, Study, Activate framework. It's a simple, it's an elegant, and it's a really powerful pattern that takes any learner on a journey from I don't get this at all the way to, hey, I can actually do this.
So, the next time you have to design a presentation, or teach someone something new, or heck, even when you're trying to learn a new skill for yourself, ask that question. How am I going to engage? How am I going to study? And maybe most importantly, how am I going to activate that knowledge so it really truly becomes mine?